Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to tonight's live stream. It feels good to be back. It's been a little while since I've seen you all live and I'm very excited to interact and chat and craft with all of you. And I have a brand new launch today to share, which is gonna be awesome. These are die cutting supplies that are really basic, go-to. They're gonna kind of become staples in your collection. I know they've become staples in my collection and I can't wait to share all of them with you. Now, before we get into everything, let's check in. It's been a while since I've been here. Since I've uploaded last, I actually went to Creativation, which is kind of the industry trade show where we share all of our different products with buyers and vendors so that they can bring them all to you guys. So that was a lot of fun to see everyone in person. Then I had my 24th birthday, and on the same day or weekend as my 24th birthday, my friend had her bachelorette party. So we were up in Door County, which is up north in Wisconsin, celebrating out there. Went up to a bunch of little shops, did some hiking. It was a really fun weekend and a great way to spend my birthday and celebrate one of my really great friends as well. All right, that's pretty much it. That's my wrap up. I want to hear how you guys are doing in the chat as well. And before we get into it too, I have a couple things to note. You guys wanted me to let you know when the clear foam tape was back in stock. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this anxiously. So it is back in stock on Ranger ink right now. I have the link down below, or if you're over at Pastepalooza, you can check the link down there right below the video, and you should be able to grab yourself a roll or two of the clear foam tape. And everyone who's gotten this already has been saying they're loving it. I'm obsessed with it. I've probably been through like 5 or 6 rolls already. This stuff is incredible for adding and popping up stuff on your cards and having it be nice and see-through. So we'll definitely use this during today's video. It's available now. Hopefully it doesn't sell out as quick as last time so that anyone who wants it can get their hands on it this time. And then I also wanted to let you know that there's a big sale right now over at scrapbook.com. They're celebrating the sizzling days of summer, so you can use code SUMMER at checkout over there to get 15% off your entire order. So it's a great day to have a brand new launch because you can get it for 15% off, which is super exciting. All right, now that we've covered all of the groundwork for today's live, let's jump in and share these brand new products with you guys. So first off, we have a brand new 3D embossing folder from my collection of Spellbinders. This is called Cascading Dots, and this embossing folder is incredible. It has these dots that start out really large at the top, and they fade down to really small, tiny little dots at the bottom. The awesome part about the Cascading Dots folder is that Spellbinders makes their folders really quite large. They are like 5.5 by 8.5 inches, so you can use them on 5 by 7 cards, but also for a design like this, it's really awesome because when you're using an A2 size card, you can shift your card panel around all over the folder to really decide how you want it to look on your card. So I just went in and embossed a couple different size A2 panels here to show you all the different effects you can get with the Cascading Dots folder. So look, if you place this more towards the bottom of the folder, you can get these really large dots fading up towards medium dots. Actually, I believe this is right in the center of the folder. Sorry, it's right in the center. Then you can also place it so that you go more towards the bottom area where it's much smaller dots. So you can see you get really tiny little dots here fading just a little bit towards slightly larger dots. Then on this one, I went up towards the top and did all those big bold dots. So you see you can get really bold and large ones. And then here, I went in the center and I tilted it. So look, you can get this kind of cool tilted dot effect too, which I find to be really fun to have kind of at the bottom of the card and fade up towards the top. So this folder is so cool with the different ways you can move it around and shift it in the folder. You can get right in the middle, smaller, larger, or kind of these really cool sideways dots. Lots of ways to use it. And again, love that you can also do a 5 by 7 card too. So there's tons of different versatility using this folder. And I also wanted to point out, we do have a Cascading Dots stencil as well. So this will layer right over top of the embossing folder perfectly, and it's going to fill in that pattern amazing. So it will layer right on top and color all of those dots in perfectly. I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on this. Coloring those dots in is so much fun using the coordinating stencil. So love that you get that. You can either buy this in a bundle or you can buy them separately. Then we have the Wild Coneflowers set. I have been dying to get my hands on another floral set with Spellbinders, and this Wild Coneflower set is perfect. It has the perfect little coneflowers. You have one that's kind of large and really opened up and bloom. Then you have one that's kind of smaller, and then you have one that's kind of more fanned out and smaller on its side as well. So really fun. You get 3 different varieties of the coneflowers, and then you get all of the stems and leaves to go with it. Then also, we have a new sentiment set. This one is called Big and Bold Sentiments, and inside of here you get happy birthday, thank you, and hello, as well as all of the shadow dies. And let me show you, this is them on an A2 size card. I've done quite a few sentiment sets in the past. This sentiment set is a completely new font. It's very kind of handwritten, like lettering almost, but it's got a pretty modern take on it, which I really love that about it. And also these are pretty large and bold, as the sentiments say on the packaging. So I loved this because you can create a really great background and use these sentiments to kind of just stand alone on the card project itself. I wanted them to be really great focal points. Of course, you could also use them alongside the flowers as they're intended to, but these are going to be your really great basic go-to sentiments to use on the front of a card if you've got something busy and you just want a nice sentiment to finish it off. I'm in love with these, and the size make them perfect for card making. So really great. I also love that we included the shadows because it makes them really stand out on your card project as well. All right, now let me show you a couple different little samples here. Here I went in with the embossing folder. I actually embossed it here, and then I took the stencil and I offset it. So you get this almost like kaleidoscope shifted effect when you stencil it like that. I did a bunch of different inks at the bottom as well, kind of blended from the top. And then I just finished it off with this simple happy birthday. And you can see with the scale of those big and bold sentiments, it really fills the card nicely, especially that big happy birthday. So you can do a simple background and have that really make the card simple, but take over the card. Really nice as the focal point. And then here's one using the coneflowers. So here I did all 3 of the coneflowers all kind of layered together like this. And then you can see that really great sentiment down here from the big and bold sentiments. I did that hello with some vellum, so you can kind of see through it. It's a little bit lighter. And then here in the background, I did that same thing, but here I just used the stencil. So instead of doing the embossing, I just did the stencil set with the cascading dots, blended it in tone on tone, and then I shifted it again because I love shifting with the stencil for some reason. And I did it with Astro paste in the color Fool's Gold to get that really great sparkle and shine all over the background. So some really beautiful and fun, elegant cards you can create with this collection. And of course, today we're going to go in and play with it as well to show you some really fun effects you can get with these products. But I love just the versatility of it, the simplicity of the dots, some really great basic sentiments, and some florals to fill out the collection. You've got some staples that are going to be in your collection for a long, long time. So let's go in and start off by doing some 3D embossing using the Cascading Dots 3D folder. I love this one. So starting off, we're gonna go in with some Simon Hurley Stark White cardstock. And whenever I do any 3D embossing, I always like to kind of soften the cardstock and get it ready to do the embossing. So you'll go in with a little bit of water and just mist it down, once or twice on both sides of the cardstock. This isn't too much water. You'll notice there's no puddles on the surface here, but it kind of softens the fibers and gets them ready to mold to the shape of the embossing folder. This is helpful if you find your cardstock rips or cracks at all. This is going to be really helpful. Spray it down with a little bit of water and you should be good to go. So give it a second for the water to set in there, and then we'll go in here and I'm going to do the sort of tilted effect. So I'm going to go in right in the center of the cardstock and just tilt this design so that we get those dots at a little bit of an angle, and it'll be larger at the bottom there, and then it'll fade up into these smaller dots. So for a 3D embossing folder in the Platinum 6 machine, you are going to take out all of your plates until you get back down to the A platform base. Then you're going to go in with your 3D embossing folder, place that right inside, and then lastly, you'll go right on top with the D adapter plate, which is the hard gray plate. Place that on top and you're ready to run it through for your emboss design. So simply run it through and just make sure that it's not too tight. This is the perfect sandwich for a Spellbinders 3D embossing folder, but every brand has a little bit of a different thickness to their folders. So just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not forcing it through. You can always check the embossing folders manufacturer to see if they have any recommended sandwiches for your machines, but don't force anything. Like I said, if it's too tight, run it back out and try a different sandwich with it. Okay, and when we lift this up, this is the reveal. Oh my gosh. The Spellbinders team did so amazing with this folder. The awesome part is they're like puffy little dots. The center is way more raised than the outside edge, so it gives you this really cool kind of puffy effect to all the dots there. And again, it goes from larger dots fading all the way downwards. And again, this was kind of at the center of the folder, shifted like that. So you can see it fades really beautifully with that design. And I always like putting the larger dots kind of on the bottom of my design and fading up towards the top, but it depends. If you want to do like a snowy scene, you might want to do the larger dots at the top, fading down to the smaller ones. So a really fun folder. I can think of so many ways to use it. We'll be using this one all year round for sure. It'll probably become one of my new staples. And let me show you how to go in and do some stenciling. So for this, I'm going to go in with my Altenew sticky mat. This is their large sticky mat, which is 9 by 12. And I'll just place my A2 panel right down onto the cardstock. Then we're going to go in and do our stenciling. So for this, I'm going to grab my coordinating stencil, and you'll just tilt it here and shift it around until you find the exact dots that we did. You know, it's easy if you do the whole thing, but if you just do one row, you'll just have to go in and find them here, and then stick it right down onto your sticky mat. And I love these sticky mats so much because it sticks down your stencil and your cardstock all in one, which is going to work perfectly when you're coloring in your design. I'm going to actually flip this around because this is how I want it to be on my card. So I'm going to just look at it how I want it to be. I want these larger dots at the bottom. Let's do the new color. Let's do red flag. I love red flag so much. I've got a blending brush for it here, and we'll go in and start blending that red flag color over on the left side. We can start off with a pretty light hand and work our way up. And I'm gonna kind of fade the color out until light at the top. So we'll go in and fade up. Yes, you can stencil the dot cherry, which is so awesome. So if you buy the Cascading Dots folder and you buy the stencil along with it, which it comes in a bundle, or you can buy them separately, then you can stencil the dots, which is so, so awesome. So we'll go in here and fade this up. I love this red flag color. It's like a cherry red. It's super bright compared to my other reds in my line. It's like the perfect warm tone red. Then we'll go in and let's do Stupid Cupid next. You guys know Stupid Cupid has got to be one of my favorites. It's like the perfect coral pinkish color. And we're going to go in and blend this right next to red flag and blend it upward. Now I love these small Simon Hurley blending brushes that we're using today to color this in. It makes ink blending so, so easy. Because the handle is at the top of the brush, instead of going off to the side, it's nice and stable rather than bending all over the place. So I love that about these brushes. It gives you full control while you're blending. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit of Slip and Wet. I'm going to blend that in to Stupid Cupid, over top of it, overlapping just a little bit. And I also love these. They have an ergonomic handle that my brother custom designed with me. So they're very comfortable to hold. You can hold them in several different ways on your brush, which is awesome. But the handle being at the top allows you to get as much control as you want with the brush, okay? This is my favorite part about it. Because if you go in with a heavy hand, like I've been showing you at the bottom here, you get a lot of color payoff really, really quickly. And then if you go in with a lighter hand, you can sort of fade it out. And as you lift up your hand, you can see you get a much lighter color. So instead of struggling because the handle's off to the side and you don't really have as much control, this gives you all the control in the world to get a nice even blend across the surface, which is amazing. Let's do a little bit of Clear Skies. So we'll blend that in to the yellow. And what's awesome about this is when Clear Skies overlaps with the yellow, you'll get a little bit of green. So it'll almost create like a little rainbow blend here with some oranges, yellows, and that blue. So you'll get that green as it overlaps because these are translucent dye-based ink pads. And again, start off with a little bit of a heavier hand at the bottom here, and then blend upward and make it a little bit lighter as you go up. How incredible is that? So, so pretty. This blend is beautiful. And then I always like to just wipe off the surface of my stencil. Just helps to kind of keep things clean and not get fingerprints all over things before I lift it off. Then we'll lift that off the surface and oh my gosh, look at that. You know what this almost reminds me of with these colors especially? You know those candy dots that are on like that sheet? You kind of peel them off. Sometimes you get a little paper along with the dot. That's sort of what this reminds me of with these specific colors, but look how pretty that is. So, so stunning. And again, the brushes really help you get all the control with that dark color fading up into light. But I love these colors together, creating that sort of rainbow blend on your card project. But how cool is it that you're able to use the cascading dots along with the folder to just perfectly color those dots in? I love that. And yes, they remind me of that candy. That candy is so good. I think, I haven't had it in a long time, so I can't remember, but maybe it was just nostalgic for me. But I love this. So for this one, I want to just show you how to just use the stencil. So let's go in onto our card panel, and I'm going to do a similar one to what we did on the sample there. So for this, I'm going to go in with a piece of blue cardstock, just like this. I love that color. I think this is Spellbinders Colorwheel cardstock, or it's Scrapbook.com's. I can't remember which color I chose today. But for this one, I'm going to go in a little bit more towards the top of the stencil, and I'm going to go straight across this time. So we'll go straight across and a little bit more towards the top. Line this up, just like that, and then press it down into my mat. So again, this stencil by itself is even just so versatile. That's why I'm like, this collection is going to be great basics, because I can think of a million ways to use just these little dots here. So for this, I think I'm going to go in with Clear Skies. It matches High Tide too, but I want it to be a little bit darker than the cardstock color. So I'm going to do a little bit of Clear Skies, and we'll go in here. And for this one, I'm actually going to go in with a medium ink blending brush. So I have them in small and medium size. The handle is exactly the same on both. So I love that you get that same ergonomic handle. It's got a really comfortable grip to it. And I'm just going to go in here and blend this right out on the surface of my cardstock. Now the reason I like having these medium brushes too is because look, it covers so much surface area at once. So if you get kind of tired hands while you're blending, or your hand might hurt, or you have wrist issues, this makes the time go by a lot quicker. Of course, you can't get into as many details with this. So if you want detail blending, you'll go in like more colors on one. You'll go in with a small brush. But if you want to just cover a lot of surface area at once, this medium brush is the way to go. So we'll just do that whole background. And once we're done, look how quick that was, right? We'll wipe off our stencil and lift it off. And look, oh my goodness. I love it. That's amazing already. Like, you could just leave this and that's like the perfect background. I love that it's got that like halftone look to it, because halftones have that really great shading to it. So it almost gives you like depth and dimension on the surface for your card. Then let's go in and let's do some paste. Now, whenever I do paste, I like to lift it off the sticky mat, just because it's easier to clean paste off of my glass surface. And we'll go in with a little bit of mint tape to hold things down. I just grab a little bit of mint tape, I loop it on the back here, put it right down, and then we'll place it right down onto our surface. All right, then we'll go in with our stencil, and you can decide if you want to do like a similar section like you did earlier. Like, I think this is where I did. You can take that same section and just shift it over and kind of overlap the dots a little bit. But let's say we want to move it up a little bit more to make the dots just a little bit smaller as they shift. And then we can shift it so that they line up right in between the other dots on the card. And then we'll also just mint tape along the bottom to make sure that things are nicely held in place while we do our stenciling. Just like that. All right, that should be pretty good. Things look nicely held down. For this, I'm gonna go back to the basics. Let's use a little bit of Slippery and Wet Lunar paste. Love me some Lunar paste. It has never failed me once. And I'm gonna go in here with my paste tool set. Now I will say, if you've been interested in the paste spreaders, which are these silicone paste tools, these are also back in stock. I've linked them down below. I know you guys have been looking for these. They've been out of stock for a long time, ever since they came in. So these are really great silicone paste tools. So if you've been looking for these, they're back in stock now. Today I'm just gonna use this because I wanna just cover this background super quickly. So I'll just add globs down onto my surface. This is how I do kind of a whole background like this, really quick and easy. Looks like you're using too much paste, but don't worry about that. And then we'll go in with our paste spreader tool, which comes inside of the paste tool set. And you'll take that spreader and just spread that all across the surface, just like this. Now with your paste spreader, if you notice there's still a lot of paste on here, but you're struggling getting it across to move on your surface, what you need to do is go in at more of a horizontal angle, more facing down towards your surface, and then apply. Look how much more paste comes out of your brush then. It applies way more onto the surface, going at a sideways angle like that. And then you can just kind of work that across the surface until it's all over the background, nice and easily. Then once you've got it fully covered on the background, you can go in at more of an upward angle, and that's gonna scrape any of the excess off completely and give you a nice thin and even coverage of the paste. So that's why I said don't worry about using too much, because any of the excess can be easily scraped off with your palette knife and put right back into the jar. So super, super easy. Yay, that's so awesome. Patty says those brush spreaders are phenomenal. Maria says the silicone brushes are great. Yes, those silicone brushes are great as well. They're really great for different application methods. I like this to do like smooth and even backgrounds. I love these for even backgrounds as well, but even like painting on the paste or just doing little detailed areas. They got a nice spring back to them. So they apply paste a little bit different than these hard plastic tools do. So really gives you lots of different options to have both. I'm gonna lift this up. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. So now I'm gonna go in, I'll lift this off the surface. You can already see it's got that great metallic shine going to it. Oh my goodness, I love Lunar paste. And we're gonna set this off to the side to let it dry while we clean up our background. And then you always wanna clean off your tools right away. So that's why I love doing this on the glass surface. This one's from Glassboard Studios. If you've been looking for a great glass mat, Glassboard Studios has like the best. I got my links down below. You can even use my coupon code, I think it's Simon15 for 15% off your purchase, which is awesome. And they even make magnetic ones. So this is a magnetic surface you can work on, which is awesome. Spray it down with lots of water. As long as the pastes are still wet, they react really well with water. So it makes cleanup very easy. And I'll just go in and wipe down my stencil. Nice and clean, and then look, it wipes off the glass mat. Super easy. We'll clean off the other side too. So don't worry about cleaning. Once it's still wet, it cleans off like butter. After I've gotten most of the paste off here, I like to do just a second run. And I do this with microfiber cloth. I can link down to these on Amazon too. That's where my favorite ones are from. And I just easily wipe everything down super quickly. And it cleans off my mat, really nice. So this is what I do for the final scrub. I don't do this right away because sometimes the paste makes towels crusty. So I just do it once there's any remnants left to clean everything off and get it nice and really thoroughly cleaned. So that's my little cleaning process there. With this background, you can leave it to dry, but I wanted to show you, these pastes are heat stable, which is something that I love about them. I really love this Ranger heat tool because it's got a wider opening, so it disperses the heat a little bit more, which is important when you're heating something like this. You don't want the heat too focused. The paste won't bubble unless if you keep the heat tool just kind of sitting in place like this, then of course you're gonna boil it. But if you just keep the heat moving around the surface, you should be good and it'll help dry this along. Now normally this would take about 30 minutes to an hour depending on where you live and how thick you applied it. But with the heat tool, it takes about 1 or 2 minutes and then you're good to go and it should be nice and dry. I also recommend lifting it up from your mat. That way it doesn't trap the heat and condensation down. So it'll dry a little bit quicker, and you can also kind of flip it over and do the backside too to make sure that the underside of the paste is also getting nice and dry. So hopefully those tips help. I like to heat set it because I'm impatient. And so I made sure with the Chemist at Ranger that these were heat stable so you guys can heat set them and keep moving along in your card making project. Now it's probably not fully dry, but we'll give it a little bit of time off to the side too to dry. But I just wanted to show you the shine really intensifies as they dry and it becomes so beautiful and shiny. But it's so much fun to have that stencil where you can shift it too and get the gold dots in between those blue dots on the background. So of course you could use just the embossing folder with the stencil, or you could use the stencil alone and add pastes down and get that really beautiful colored effect. So for this next background, let's go in with just our stencil and let's go in and do kind of this fun watercolor effect. To do this, I'm gonna bring in my Simon Hurley watercolor cardstock. I love my watercolor cardstock. It is really great for taking color and water on your surface. So, you know, stark white cardstock takes a good amount of water, but if you're really gonna pool this cardstock with water, I'd recommend switching over to the watercolor cardstock. You can do watercolor effects, or you could do full background water effects as well. And it keeps the color vibrant and gives lots of great effects with water. So I'm gonna use this. It's got a little bit more of a texture to it than my regular cardstock, but there's also a little bit smoother of a side. So if you wanna use the smooth side or the textured side, you can. I'm gonna set this off to the side, but I just wanted it ready here. Then let's go in and pick some colors. Let's do clear skies. Let's do the new cold shoulder color, which I think is a really fun one. And then should we do a purple in here too? Let's do pompous at the bottom. So I think these colors will be kind of pretty together. We'll create kind of a sky. Now, whenever I'm doing a background like this, I always like to go in with the lightest color first. So I'll go in and just tap on that cold shoulder color, or sorry, this is clear skies. I'll go in and tap on that clear skies color. And one thing that's awesome about this technique is I used to do this with my felt pads from the Simon Hurley line, and it was difficult to get a really bold color on the surface. But with these new Stellar inks, with that foam pad, the inks are so juicy and you get such a great bold color onto the surface so easily. Like, look at that cold shoulder. That's a brand new one now. Clear skies probably needs a little bit of re-inking, but look how beautiful and bold that color is on the surface. Cold shoulder has quickly become one of my favorites. Then we'll go in and do 100% juice, and we'll bring that at the bottom. Now I try not to overlap my foam pads as much as possible. If you do overlap them a little bit and you get some color where you don't want it, it might stain the pad a little bit, but don't worry too much about that. But all you need to do to get rid of any ink that might have seeped in is just dot it out until you're back to the original color. So if you're worried about the edge touching the other edge, just go in and blot that off. But again, always start with the lightest color first and then work your way into the darker colors. All right, I'll put my ink pads back away in my storage system, and I'm going to take this and just start spraying this stencil down, okay? We'll spray, 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 spray with water until we get those colors moving on our surface. Once you see the color kind of blending into each other, you know that you have enough water. Do you see it moving on that stencil there? That's how you know you've got a good amount of water. If you want to add a little bit more to make sure your stencil is nice and filled in and things are going to blend, you totally can. All right, so once that's ready, we're going to go onto our cardstock. This is our watercolor cardstock again, and I'm going to tilt that, and I'm going to press it right down into the surface. Once that's down on the surface, you'll notice it's already going to start blending. We're going to take our paper towel and just seep in any of the extra color that's coming out of it. You can see there's a lot of excess color that's seeped out. This is a really important step. If you want your background to be crisp and keep all that detail of those circles, you want to blot off with a clean paper towel in between each layer, because a lot of actual color came out of there. But if you just kind of press it down in with your fingers, the color is going to kind of go all over the place. Whereas if you press down with your paper towel, it's all seeping into that paper towel, keeping the lines very nice and crisp, okay? So we can keep blotting and let it seep in. You'll notice with this technique that it's seeped into these areas, but not over here. So we'll just let this kind of seep in and dry into our watercolor cardstock as we go. Now again, I recommend the watercolor cardstock because it takes water really well. I've tried this with the stark white cardstock, but for some reason it mutes the color a little bit because you use so much water, whereas the watercolor takes all that color and keeps it nice and bold and intense. So that's why I switch over to this watercolor cardstock when I do this technique. It seems to work really well with this. You can see it's seeping in really nicely as we go here. You don't want to lift right away. You want to wait until it's pretty much all seeped in. If you lift, all the water and color is going to go to one side and make a puddle on there rather than seeping in and keeping that design nice and solid. All right, we should be good to go now. Lifting this off. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I could have waited a little bit longer. See, you see that in the center there? Could have waited there. It would have kept that line nice and bright white, but look at that. How cool is that? You get those really nice white dots, and you get all of that really bold and beautiful watercolor technique on the background. I think that is so stunning on the surface there. And then of course you'll want to heat set this. We got a lot of water moving on the surface there. But again, I love the watercolor cardstock because look how bold those colors stayed. Really, really stunning. Then last but not least, let's do one more techniques with the dots embossing folder. So let's go in here again. We'll bring in a little bit of my Simon Hurley stark white cardstock. I'm going to go in and spray this right down. Then I'll bring it onto my surface and let's do kind of more towards the bolder dots. And should we do it at an angle again? I think let's do it at an angle, just like that. I think that should be pretty good. Just as a reminder, for your plates, you'll pull everything out, leaving just the A platform base in there. Then you'll go in with your Spellbinders 3D embossing folder right on top. And lastly, you'll use the D gray adapter plate and place that right on top and run it right through. All right, oh my gosh, it never fails to amaze me. This does such an amazing job at getting that beautiful texture all throughout your design. Now to add color, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could just blend right on top of this without the stencil, and you'll get everything colored in, but it'll kind of highlight the dots a little bit. But let's say we want to get the background colored and leave the dots white. You could of course do that fun watercolor technique that I just did, but there's another way to get that same really cool effect. So one way to do it is flip it over. So these dots are debossed, kind of impressed into the cardstock there. So now kind of on the back side of that embossing folder, but you can use it either way, just like this. And then let's go in with a brayer. Now I found these really awesome brayers. I just upgraded to them and I've been loving them for my inks and pastes. I think it's like $8 or $10 for a pack of 2. Really great. And I think they're like, this one is like 2 inches for the small one, and the bigger brayer I think is 3 or 4 inches. So you get both of these in a pack. I like how sturdy they are, and they don't squeak when you roll them, which is really, really great. I'm gonna go in with the small one first. You can see I've already used this. It's well loved with pastes. And we're gonna go in and use this with just inks this time. Let's start off with Prom Queen. I really like this color. And then let's go in and just go in and load up your brayer. You can go in, and to load this up, you're not going back and forth just like this. You're lifting your brayer and then rolling it through. Lift, roll, lift, roll. That's gonna coat the whole brayer. If you just keep it in the same spot and roll back and forth, you're just loading up one side of your brayer. So load up the whole thing and then go in and do a light pressure on the surface and roll it back and forth to fully cover your cardstock with ink. And we can sort of slowly shift our way up to get that little bit of lighter color and kind of fading outwards, okay? Then we'll go back in and roll this across to just get a nice even coverage across our surface. And because those dots are inward, kind of recessed into the design, it's coloring whatever's raised most. So that's the background. So now we're getting the dots white and the background nice and colored. Yes, I do like the big handles and the brayers too. Yes, Patty, you make a good point. They're easier to hold on to too, which I really love. So then I'm going to wipe this color off on the surface to clean in between colors for our brayer. Honestly, you could use this as a piece of art too once you're done with it probably. Then we're gonna go in with, let's use a little bit of Fruitcake next. Fruitcake is this really beautiful color. It just came out. It's kind of this light peachy orange tone, which I think is gorgeous. Again, lift and roll, and then go in. Oh my gosh, Fruitcake is just gorgeous. I love this color. Again, lift and roll, and then go in and blend that out with Prom Queen. Ugh, I'm obsessed with that. You guys, I think we just came up with a beautiful new blend. It creates like this peachy tone as you overlap them, this sort of peachy pink. And then we'll kind of roll up a little bit to hopefully blend this out into the next color. But it gives you more of like a grungy kind of cool look. Of course, as you're brayering, you could like do some kind of skippity brayering and you know, not too as solid of a brayer as I'm doing, but here I'm doing really solid colors and kind of blending them together like this, which is awesome. I'll link these brayers after the live. I forgot to do it. But I will link them, so that way you guys can find them. All right, so Buzzkill, we're gonna go in with next. Roll that in, and then we'll brayer that right on top. And oh my gosh, yep. That completes off our design beautifully. And Buzzkill, if you don't have this yellow yet, Buzzkill is like the perfect ice cone, kind of frozen looking yellow. And it's nice and soft, so it blends into other colors beautifully, like Fruitcake and other pastel tones. But it's definitely different than Slippery When Wet, and it's also different than Shooting Star. It's not as bright as Shooting Star, but it is gorgeous. It works well with these 3 tones here. And look at that. Just stunning. I love it. Go in and wipe off my brayer. And then look at that background. It is gorgeous. I love it. And let's say you want to add a little bit of gold and like shine to this background as well. It's really easy and kind of fun to do. We can go in with Slippery When Wet paste again. You can use whatever color paste you want, but I think I want this color gold across the surface. I'm gonna go in with my palette knife again, create a little palette of color by just wiping this on the side. Very thin, you don't want globs of color, you just want a very thin application. I'll take this and then roll the brayer through. So again, very small amount, I'll take it and roll it through and then pull out some color. So look, you can see my brayer is coated, but kind of skippity bits, because we want kind of a vintage effect as we add this gold. and then I'll just kind of skip it on. I'm not rolling as hard as I was earlier. I'm just skipping back and forth, kind of lifting my brayer in some areas, and it'll give you this beautiful golden effect that gives this kind of rustic look. Do you see that? It's rustic, it's not perfect, and that's what I like about it. It's got a little bit of grunge to it, which is fun. Okay. Then we'll roll on top, and you can see once it's all dry, that shine really comes through, and it gives you that kind of grungy, kind of bold look with a little bit of that shine across it. I love that. Julie says, admit it. Is Slippery When Wet named after a Bon Jovi album? It is not. I did hear about that after I named it, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know that was an album beforehand. I know, don't come for me here, but I didn't know that was an album before I named it. Honestly, I was just thinking of those little signs that they like put in restaurants and things like that. That's like, you know, avoid this area. That's what the color looked like to me. I do regret it naming it Slippery When. I regret naming it Slippery When Wet because I cannot say that color name for the life of me. For some reason, that's a tongue twister for me. Say Slippery When Wet 3 times fast and you'll understand me. I cannot say that color name for the life of me. So I do regret naming it that. That was a 16-year-old Simon's decision and I'm mad at him still to this day for it. But no, it was not named after the Bon Jovi album, but I have heard of that after the fact. So then to clean this off, I'm gonna again go in with a little bit of water. Wipe this off of the surface. So here are all the different backgrounds that we made today with just the stencil. Here we created these two with the stencil and then doing some embossing folder ones as well. You get a lot of different variety with the Cascading Dots embossing folder and stencil together. So you guys definitely need to add that to your collection. There is so many ways to use it. And again, this is gonna become like just a staple in my collection. It'll be perfect for snow, different seasons, but really just adding little dots. It's just such a basic and bold design that is such a great staple to have in your collection. So now let's go in and let's create some flowers as our focal point, and then we'll put together some of these card projects. So for the florals, I went into my set and I've already cut out a lot of pieces. Now these are the Craft Stacks by Spellbinders containers. I love these. I've linked these guys down below. These have been a game changer for me. I cannot stress it enough. When they first came out, I was like, oh, they're just bins, right? No, okay? These guys stack together really nicely. I think they come 4 or 5 containers in a pack. And then my favorite part about them is they got lids on them. The lids were the most important part to me. So the lids are awesome because it makes sure that nothing is flying out as you unstack them, which is amazing. So inside of both these containers, I've already pre-cut a lot of the different coneflowers, as well as all the different stems and leaves that are inside of the set. So we'll go in and do a little bit of shading. Now, first let's start off by doing some basic shading on these yellow coneflowers. So for these guys, I'm gonna pull out all the different pieces that I did, and I'm gonna go in with the Slippery When Wet ink pad, because this color is a little bit darker than the yellow cardstock that I used. This is Spellbinders Colorwheel cardstock. I love their Colorwheel cardstocks because they're nice and thick, 100-pound cardstocks, and they got some great colors. And all I do with my blending brush is I go into the center of these florals and just blend in some color. So here it's the center, that's where the color is gonna be the darkest. And I'll go in and just add some shading and dimension around there. This is gonna really bring your floral to life. I'm telling you, these little details really bring it to life and make it look 3D off your card projects. Then I'm gonna go in on these florals, and because the center is right here, I'm gonna go in from that point and blend out onto those petals. Really with these florals, it's all about just blending from wherever this point is, wherever that solid center area is, that's where you're gonna add the most shading around your petals, okay? And then on these ones, again, add some shading and dimension right into that center area. So for our leaves, it's really easy to do the shading and dimension as well. Let's do 4, which is this nice dark green color. It's like a dark mid-tone green. And for these, I like to go at the base of the leaf because that's where it's gonna be hitting the stem, and I'll just hit it with a little bit of that dark tone. Do you see that? Just a little bit of shading down at the bottom there. That's gonna be really nice and easy for me. So here, that looks like the bottom of the leaf for me. So we'll go in and shade that in. This one is the bottom, so add some shading. It's really simple to do. I'm telling you guys, if you want your florals to stand out, if you're not too happy with your die cutting and you want them to look 3D, these little tips with just bringing in a little bit of ink Honestly, these small blending brushes too have been game-changing for this sort of technique because it just helps you get into those little details, add some ink, and keep moving. But these aren't too small. Sometimes there's a brush that's like too small, and then when you're adding the ink, it still takes a lot of time. This is nice and easy because it covers a good amount of surface area, but still gets into the little details. For the centers, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of Weeping Willow paste. This is the Lunar paste. I love Weeping Willow paste. And I just go in with my finger, okay? You could use a sponge here too. And I just go in and add a little bit of that paste right down to the center. Very thin layer goes a really long way, and it's gonna add a really great metallic shine to these. And the reason why you wanna add a thin layer is because there's a lot of detail in these. You can see all that little debossed detail. So you don't wanna get rid of that, but I just wanna add a little bit of shine and dimension. And so a really tiny amount of that paste goes a very long way to add some really great shine and depth to the center of these flowers. I love that. So I'll just go in with my finger and spread it across. And the reason why I use my finger for this is literally just because a sponge takes a while to clean. I don't want to clean it, and my finger is just easy, okay? I can wipe that off with a little bit of water afterwards, no big deal, and you're good to go. Then let's go in and start adhering these guys together. So I'm gonna go in with some Barely Arts liquid glue, and let's adhere the florals together. So for this guy right here, all you're gonna do is take this piece that's a little bit larger, add a little bit of liquid glue down to it, and then you'll add this smaller piece right on top. And so all it does is just layer these onto the points together, and it creates a really great layer, and it makes them look nice and 3D. You see that? That's awesome. Then for this flower, all you're gonna do is add a little bit of liquid glue to the centerpiece, and the center is the same size, so it's designed to fit perfectly on top of each other. And you should know it's lined up when the centerpiece kind of fills right in between the other flowers. So look, it fills in between the leaves. That's how you know it's lined up perfectly. And it makes that really great 3D look. I just love that. And then for this one, we'll go in and add this piece right on top. And again, just make sure those little areas go right in between and fill in all of the leaves. Perfect. Then for these centerpieces, the centers are pretty easy, but all you do, I mean, this paste is already pretty much dry because it was so thin. Look, oof, that shine is magical. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit of glue down to this. Now you could skip this section. We actually added these little tiny pieces in the set in case you wanted to do this, but you don't have to. And there's two different sizes. So one is smaller than the other, and this one is the smaller one. So I'm gonna go in with that small base to it. It's almost like a little collar to the bottom of the center. And look, it just adds that little detail. Now you don't have to add that. If you feel like this is too much and you don't want to keep, adding stuff to it, you don't have to. You could totally just leave it without the collar and just do the centerpiece. But it adds a good amount of dimension, so I love adding it down. Add some more depth to the image, and then we'll go in and add this centerpiece right front and center onto the coneflower. And look, super simple. What is that, 4 layers? 4 layers and you've got a really beautiful 3D looking floral. And look at that center shining. Ugh, gorgeous. Love it. That'll never get old. All right, then for the next center, I'll grab the larger of the two, and I'll grab the larger center. And again, all you gotta do is add the color down at the bottom, and then all you gotta do is add this right down to the center of the coneflower to cover up that centerpiece. And look, this one looks like it's blooming absolutely beautifully. Love it. And then the little one also goes along with this guy, and add that right down to this guy. But look how cool and easy that is. So fun. Now let's put these guys together on a card quickly. And lately I've been loving these arch dies. These are the Essential Arches from Spellbinders. And you know what? They are amazing. It is a great die set because I just love that little arched shape. So I think I'm going to use this one right here, this size, and just run this right through to cut out that arch to give it a little bit of detail and dimension to the background. We can then build our little scene right inside of this arch. So I'm gonna grab a couple different stems. There's different sizes in the set that you can use, and they're leaning different directions as well. So like there's one leaning over here, and then one like right here, and we can just add them down right onto that piece. And I want them kind of hanging off the arch. I think that's the fun part about having a shape like this, is making them hang off gives it more of like a 3D kind of effect. And then for this one, I'll put this kind of hanging off to the side, just like that. And we'll add some leaves in that we've already added shading to. So for the leaves, I want this to have a leaf right here. Should we do like one of these leaves right here? That'd be cool. Now to adhere things like this down, when we've already got all of the florals placed and ready, then we're gonna go in and start taking things out and gluing it down. So I like to kind of be careful, leave things there, and just go in and add some glue to glue it down, but that way it keeps it there so we know where things kind of still go. We'll add that down, and then we'll go in with a little bit of liquid glue and add down the leaves. And again, just take them out one by one, and then you know exactly where they line back up on the card. All right, I think that is stunning so far with just these stems. We can then go in and trim things off. So I want to trim it down off the base, but I'm going to leave that leaf hanging off the edge because I think some things kind of hanging off the arch adds a little bit of depth and dimension to it. Then we're going to go in with a little bit of our clear foam tape. Now with our Simon Hurley clear foam tape, the same Craft Stacks medium containers, I put it right inside of one of those small Craft Stacks containers, and you can actually put 2 rolls inside of here. So I love that there's 2 rolls, but the sides of this is a little bit sticky, so it can kind of collect dust if you just leave it out of a container. So I put it right inside of here, and I like that it has a lid to seal it off. You can put these inside of a Tupperware container too, but I love them right inside of these because I had them on hand. All right, then let's go in and add down the florals. I'm gonna take a little piece of our foam tape. I love these Spellbinders shears. You want a nice pair of non-stick scissors to add things down and to cut down that clear foam really easily. I'm going to place that right down onto our card, just like that, hanging off the edge a little bit again to give it some dimension and depth. And then I want this little guy to be hanging over there. So again, I'll cut a little piece of that clear foam tape. Oh, that is amazing. I love that composition. I love that they're kind of hanging off the edge there. You got them going in different directions. And I love that there's so many different stems and possibilities of ways to adhere this down and get a really great composition with them. Okay, I also am obsessed with the center, having that Weeping Willow paste. It just makes that shine beautifully. Okay, so I'll put my clear foam tape away. And now let's adhere this down to a card base. So for this, I'm gonna go in with one of my Simon Hurley top folding card bases. These are pre-cut and scored for you already. So it's easy to go in and just score it down. And then you'll grab your Teflon bone folder and score it into place. So simple, and I love that it saves you so much time and doesn't take you out of crafting. And then we'll go in here with a little bit of liquid glue to adhere this down to our card. Then we'll place this front and center. And I love that the liquid glue just gives us a minute or two, or sorry, a couple of seconds, not a minute or two, to go in here and make sure everything is nice and perfectly centered. And yeah, check that out. I love the arch here, and I love that things are hanging off of it to just give it some great dimension and depth to our card and composition. All right, now for the sentiments, I've already cut and I've got them stored away in a Craft Stacks container, all of the different sentiment options that we could do here. Again, love these big and bold sentiments, and I love that they have those shadows. So again, it stands out really nicely off the card. We have thank you, which we could do like up there. That's pretty. Nice and bold. You could even do it at like an angle like that. Oh, I kind of like that at an angle. It kind of gives it like a postcard look. So that's really pretty. You could also do that kind of down here, overlapping the leaves a little bit, like that. And then I also love this hello. The hello goes really well with the florals because the florals are quite big as well. So this doesn't take away from it. All right, then we'll go in with a little tweezers. I like this for little sentiments and stuff because you can kind of visualize things before you really commit to it. And I think I like it there. I also like it up here a little bit higher. Could be cute at an angle too, but I think I'm going to stick with it right in this area. Just like that. That looks perfect. Perfectly placed. And then we'll commit by sticking it nice and down. Oh, I love this card so much. So here we did that background using just the Cascading Dots stencil with kind of a watercolor look, cut it out in one of those awesome arches, and then finish it off with the Coneflowers, which are absolutely amazing. Putting those together is so easy, and you get such a beautiful background out of them. And then finishing it off with the hello from the big and bold sentiments to finish it. I love it so much. It's bold, beautiful, and elegant, and I can't wait to send this one out. All right, for the next one, let's go in and let's color one of the Coneflowers in kind of a different way. So here, for this, I'm gonna go in with these white die cuts that I've already done. I'm gonna go in with this Coneflower, and let's use the smaller one as well. And then I'm gonna go back onto my sticky mat to do my blending, and I'm going to stick down these die cuts, just like this. So sticking them down onto your sticky mat so they aren't gonna move while we do our ink blending. If you wanna color in the whole flower. And I love doing the die cuts in white, especially when it comes to florals or Coneflowers, because then you have all the creativity on what colors you can color them in, rather than just putting a darker color onto an already colored piece of cardstock, all right? So here we get to kind of choose. So for this, I'm gonna start off with a little bit of Stupid Cupid. We'll kind of start off in the center of the Coneflowers. So here I'm going in with my Simon Hurley small ink blending brush so I can kind of control where I apply the ink. And I'll start off in the center with a little bit of Stupid Cupid, just like that. Same thing on this one, because this is gonna be a layered look. So start off in the center with some Stupid Cupid. For the center of the small one, I wanna do a little bit of Ultraviolet, which is a new color. It's almost like a pinkish purple. And I think it'll be beautiful with these Coneflower florals. So we'll blend that right into the center of the flower. Look at that. Beautiful. And again, just avoid, like, know that in your mind, you're not going to see those centers. So it doesn't matter how dark they are or whatever. You're really only going to see where the actual stems or leaves start. Love that. So for this one, I'm going to go in with Buzzkill using my small ink blending brush again. I'm going to bring that Buzzkill color in. And Buzzkill is stunning with Ultraviolet. Brings that nice, bright, light color into it, but not too dark of a yellow, which I like. That's really pretty together. And then with my other one, I think I'm gonna bring in a little bit of Slippery When Wet, and we'll add that towards the outside. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit of a lighter hand first to kind of blend this into the pink. Really easily. Creates almost like an orange when you overlap them. And then to make this even darker just on the edges, I'm gonna bring in it with a heavier hand and just hit right on the edge to make it just slightly darker right around the edge. I am reading the comments right now, and Jean says the larger flower is upside down. You are so right. Look at it on the packaging. And you know what the worst part is? I made this packaging sample. But it is kind of pretty like this too. It almost looks like it's like blooming in a different direction. But yeah, it is totally upside down. You know what? We learned something new today because I kind of like it like that. But you are so right, Jean. All right, we are gonna flip it this time. So, I mean, it's gonna be flipped when I make it. Good thing to point out. Right at the end, you know, I saw your comment earlier and I was like, oh, I don't really know what you're saying. You are so right, it's flipped. All right. So we'll go in here, lift these guys off. This is why I have you guys, because you're the smarter ones here. We'll start off by adding that little collar down to the center of the flower. And glue it right down onto our inside pieces. And again, we put a little bit of that Weeping Willow paste on these, so they're gonna shine really beautifully. And then, all right, here, we're gonna take this flower, and yes, it goes this way. I'm sure my team is watching this, or they're gonna watch it tomorrow and be like, wow, he's really putting this together wrong. But yes, I guess it is more versatile knowing that, because I think that it looks kind of pretty the other way as well. But it most definitely was indeed created to go this way. So look at that. Yep, that looks more normal. we'll go in and add down that center, just like this. And then we'll do the same thing with this small one, put a little glue on it, and add it right down to the center. And this is what I said, you can use the larger one on this, and it looks kind of like cute. It looks adorable with the large stem and the really small flowers. But of course, if you want to make it more to actual scale, you could use the smaller center like we did on the last card. But I like it with this big one too. I think it looks funny. All right, then let's go in and start putting our card together. For this one, I think I want to just trim this down. So let's trim it down. I'm going to trim it so that maybe it's like half and half. Would that be kind of cool? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna trim it like that. That might have been a big mistake, but we'll see. And we'll add this down. And again, I always start at the top fold, line it up along the side. And there we go. And then here, I think it'll be fun to kind of play with this line being here. So I'm gonna like add this down like this and have this one be running right along that center line. I think that's cool, right? And for this, I'm going to, should we throw it in the third flower that we've already done? Let's do it, why not? There's no rules tonight. We are just having fun crafting together. So who said we couldn't add that one in? And then we'll go in with some of our stems here. I'm gonna add that one down right there. This is the part where I get quiet and I'm like, okay, does that look good? I think I like that. So we'll go in and start adhering some things down. The clear foam tape is amazing. So we'll add a little bit down to this center and throw it onto our project. Oh, so much better. Good work, guys. Telling me this flower is upside down. You guys are brilliant. That looks great. And I'll just throw some of these in. Like that. That is really pretty. I like how that looks, so let's leave it now. And I'm gonna go in with my scissors and trim off any of the excess that's hanging off the card. I'm loving how that turned out with that background and the coneflowers on one side. And then we can go in here and use one of our sentiments. And I think for this, I wanna do thank you. And should I just like put it over here? I think that's kind of pretty. Let me slant it slightly. I like that. Okay, let me slant it. We're gonna put it at a slant just like this. Good idea. Our gold said slant it slightly. I like that. Slanting these sentiments is kind of fun. It's a good font to have slanted like that. It almost looks like handwritten. You can give it kind of like that postage kind of a look, which has been really big for me lately. Ooh, I like this. And look, I forgot to show you guys earlier. Look at that foam tape. You barely see it because it just kind of blends in with the background beautifully. Isn't that so cool? And here is the finished card. So that background is so much fun using just the Cascading dot stencil and shifting it with both ink and paste to get that really, really beautiful look with tons of shine. And then of course, finishing it off with the coneflowers and the big and bold sentiments to really create such a great, elegant scene on our card project. I love how it turned out and I can't wait to finish this one off and send it out. All right, guys, thank you. Should we do one more? I was gonna say, all right, guys, thanks so much for watching, but I kind of want to do one more. Why not? We're still here. Why not? I kind of want to do this because this is kind of giving me birthday vibes, and I wanted to show you guys how simple this really can be, okay? So let's do it. Why not? I'm gonna go in with trimming this down first. We'll trim it down to 5 and something by 4 and something. I don't give direct measurements here. And then we're gonna do what I call the Gina K border because she pretty much has this trademarked because it is her signature, but I want a little bit more black on the card to make it a little bit bolder around the edge. So I'm gonna do a very thin border. I believe it's like 1/8 inch. I'm gonna trim that down into my trimmer. And look, it's just gonna give it the tiniest little black border. Then I'm going to add down my embossed panel onto the black border that I just created. And again, we can place this down into our card. Now we can have it go either way. That's kind of pretty too. Why not? Let's do it that way. Because who said we can't? Then we're gonna go right on to our white card, and look, that little black border makes it just pop off the card. That little something really does it. Look how simple that is too. It's just the embossing and stenciling, but it really makes a bold impact on your card. And now look, this is really where the big and bold sentiments shine. Because look, all we need to do, add it right to the center, and that happy birthday it's quite literally huge, okay? And it just takes up the front of your card so you can make the focal point stand out, or the background stand out. And you know what? You guys inspired me. I'm tilting it. I'm embracing the tilt. Because I think that's really cool. With this font, the tilt just works. It just works. And then for this one, we'll go in, again, with that thin strip that we cut down of the foam tape, and place it right underneath. Again, embracing the tilt. I think that's so good. Guys, simple, but really stunning. I love it. So yes, this was the first one that we did with the 3D embossing, so you get all that texture with the dots, and just placing the stencil right over top of the textured dots and doing a little bit of ink blending to get those really beautiful colors. And who knew such a simple card would be so beautiful, because all we did was just embrace the background that was full of color, matted it down onto a piece of black cardstock, and then used the happy birthday from the big and bold sentiments to really be the star of the show and create a simple birthday card. And in this instance, it almost looks like falling confetti. I'm telling you, these cascading dots can be just a texture, but they can also work as confetti or snow or different textures on your card projects to finish the design. I love how everything turned out in today's live, doing the different embossed backgrounds and using the coneflowers and the sentiments to turn them into some finished card projects. So many ways to use all these things. Like I said, this release is pretty basic, but really stunning. And I think it's going to kind of take place in my collection as a staple. The different sentiments, the great textures with the dots, and of course, these beautiful coneflowers I'll definitely be using all year round. So hopefully you guys love this launch as much as I do. Once again, definitely if you're shopping at scrapper.com, use the code SUMMER and you'll get 15% off your entire purchase. So hopefully you guys can save a little money while shopping. And be sure to check out that clear foam tape, which is now back in stock at Ranger. Hopefully you guys can get your hands on a roll before it sells out again. All right, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you later this week on Friday for a special surprise. All right, I can't tell you anymore, but I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.